Welcome back to the YTG podcast.
Welcome.
You are new here, my name is Nico. I'm an automotive photographer and now amateur racing driver.
I'm Sean, and I am the owner of this lovely shed in Keysborough, YTG Youngtimers Garage.
Here
Welcome.
on the weekly-ish YTG podcast, we're going to give you the sort of inside scoop inside the automotive industry in Australia, as well as some fantastic stories, motorsport, anything car related. So, and a bit of electric car hate. Join us on another episode, and we hope you enjoy. Welcome to the YTG podcast.
Special day today. We have the Porsche Club Victoria with us. An amazing morning. We're very grateful to have the club here. It's a first for them, first for us, and we've got a very dear guest captain, or Rusty French, is with us. First podcast with the Porsche Club, so it's going to be great. Welcome, Captain.
Thanks, Sean. Fantastic to be here. Great to see so many Porsche Club people here enjoying the day.
Yes, and Captain's middle name is Porsche, I would say. So you would say we're blessed to have his, which you have seen, obviously, that photo that we got, which we were privileged, which got into Top Gear magazine, and we had Captain's 935, the Mummy Dick, and the Crema, and all the other cars we had, which is on the picture there. So we have them on display as well here again, and he bought the 992 Turbo S, which is a pretty special car that's outside as well. So we got that in here, and Captain. What else? What about, you haven't been doing any racing of late, have you? Just been nothing?
No, the last 12 months I've pretty well just been doing track days.
Yes.
My daughter's about to start on the Toyota 86 series.
Yes.
A lot of time getting cars and trucks and things ready for her for next year.
Yes.
So we took her over to the Bend last weekend, and she was able to spend the weekend with Steve Richards and young Clay Richards, and Jazzy's going to be taking over that car that Clay's driving.
Yes.
From after Bathurst. So I've had to forego some of the races that I would have done. But,
so the next generation now.
For the next generation, that's it. But
and
she's very
running...
keen and very determined, so all you can do is make sure she's got the right gear to do it with.
Yes, and she's got a lovely Cayman S manual, which we got her.
That was a young timer's garage
yes,
car.
Yes,
that little red one.
Yeah.
Which turned out to be a manual.
Manuals,
and was quite funny because when Don traded the car, and I knew Don from previous days, and I said, manual, that'll do Jazzy to start with. So that's been her first road car, this little Cayman S. And she's actually did the Porsche track day at Sandown a few months ago.
Yes.
And that was her first time on the track at Sandown,
yes.
or on any track. And we had Dean from Evolve. He was mentoring her for the day, so he was fantastic.
Yes.
And it was good for her because it was wet in one session, dry in the next session. So she's got a mixture of wet and dry at Sandown.
Yes.
And I was actually running the Turbo S there, and I came in and we shared the same garage, and I just let Dean look after her for the day, and I just said to Dean, you look after her, Dad'll stay away.
Yeah.
Anyway, after lunch when the track was dry, she said, I said, how fast are you going? She said, Dad, I was doing 200 up the back straight. I said, that's not bad in a Cayman S for your first drive at Sandown. So in 2 weeks' time, or 3 weeks' time, the next track day for the Porsche Club is at Phillip Island.
Oh, it is.
And,
awesome.
So she's going to be taking the Cayman S down there, and Dean's going to mentor her. And that'll be great for as many Porsche Club members as possible that can attend those meetings. They're fantastic because they get a feel, as Nick would know, driving on the road is one thing, driving on the track is another thing.
Total thing.
So
especially
to be
Phillip
able
Island.
to take your Porsche out of the garage and take it down and do some laps, and even if you just start at the entree level, and at least it'll make you a better driver on the road, and it'll make you aware of what your car can do in the dry, what it can do in the wet.
That's the case.
So it's probably an accident that you won't have if you know how to drive it.
Yes.
Could not
very
agree
true.
more.
Yeah, very true. And she's never been to Phillip Island?
No, it hasn't been a Phillip. This will be a first drive at Phillip Island as well.
In a Cayman?
In any car.
Any car?
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
That'd be huge. Yeah.
So that's what we've got on the agenda. But her, ultimately, after we get past the Toyota series, her aim is to go into GT4.
Yes.
And we've got a GT4 on order through Porsche Cars Australia. So by the time I'll do some meetings in that one myself,
yes.
and then when she's ready, she'll jump in and she loves Porsche.
Yeah, well,
and,
I don't think she's got much choice.
Actually, when she was born, her first name's Jazzy, her second's name Porsche. So she's a Porsche girl.
Well, we're talking to a few of the other club members, and we're going to be asking like what's in their garage. I suppose it's probably a question we can't really ask you because we'll be here all day. But what would you say, Captain, out of currently, what would you say probably one of your more favourite cars that you would drive? I mean, it's a hard question to ask, but what would you say?
Well, probably I think on the road, for day use, the new Turbo S is a fantastic car.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got some older turbos,
yes.
993s and 997s and earlier ones. They're great, but I think if you like something that's really quite exciting, the new Turbo S is fantastic.
Yeah.
The GT2 RS
yes.
is also a bit of a weapon, but it's not really an ideal
road
car to go down and get the milk in. So you could... it's more of a track car.
Yeah.
So the reason I enjoy the S is because you can go to town in it, just put in auto and away you go.
Yeah.
Whereas the other ones, you can manual shift it obviously, but...
Well, the good thing was I think the last Cars and Coffee, Jazzy had her L's on it.
Yeah, she did.
Everyone was still talking about that.
Yeah, so
gold.
Jazzy's very comfortable driving the Turbo S. That's why she's been a bit slow getting off the L's. She's still on L's.
Because she can't drive it when she's off the L's.
Yeah. How silly is that?
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah,
you can drive it when you're L's, but when you've got your full licence, you can't drive it.
Yeah.
Go figure.
Yeah. So I just say to her, well, you can't drive around on L's for the rest of your life. You better make the decision.
So the Turbo S, I suppose, at the moment would be probably just your good all-round that you would do. It does everything you need.
It does everything. Fantastic car. And I mean, they're just so safe and so predictable, and you can just set the driving modes where you want it.
Yeah.
If it's wet, you put it on wet. If
Yeah.
you want sports, you can have sports. So, yeah, they're pretty wild. I mean, I haven't really learned how to turn all the buttons.
Because it's got so much technology in it, these new ones. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. But I think if you come back to animalistic cars, there's nothing like the old 935s. I mean, they are fantastic to drive.
Yeah, can you tell us what... we're looking at one right there, 935K.
One of four of your cars. You got four.
We've got four 935s.
Yeah, and then we've got the Moby Dick on the other side.
That's correct.
Which is only two, I think, because Lindsay and you have them, isn't it? That's it?
That's correct.
Yeah,
There's two in Australia.
Yeah,
so
correct.
what are those old ones like to drive? Because I've seen footage of you in...
When you were racing with Jimmy
car,
in the JPS BMW, you two were just giving it to each other at Calder.
At Calder.
That was way back when, back in 1983,
Yes.
when the GT series was running and Jimmy Richards was, he was...
That 3 Series or something, right?
He was chasing me, and actually what happened in the end of that race, when you see it, that the tail, the rear wing comes off.
Yes.
And Jim gave me so many taps up the back that he actually dislodged the mounting pins, and it actually broke the pins off, so it let the wing let go. So the moment that the wing went, it lost its downforce. So it was like somebody had put a trolley jack under the back and just turned it around.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Right.
So that footage is on YouTube. Go and search up Rusty French versus Jim Richards.
Yeah, it was a pretty heated battle. You guys were just... Mate,
nuts.
It was absolutely nuts. You're getting into it, and you just see the thing pull out of the corners. It's just out of control.
Yeah, when I was racing the Hyper Racer there the other weekend, that footage was what I was picturing as I was going around. So cool.
Well, it was on the same track that you were on there, so it was fantastic.
It was the same track they used?
Yeah,
same layout.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
wow.
I was talking to Rodney Jane the other day, and it's fantastic that Rodney's putting some money back in now, and he's going to make that track available for test and tunes on Fridays, and Rowan Harmon's going to be looking after it for him, so he's a great guy to be doing that. So it's another track that we'll have in Victoria, because I think that's the problem. We've got these great cars, but we have a limited number of tracks. So between Winton, Phillip Island, Sandown and Calder coming back, that'll be fantastic. So we've got
Sandown's
the choice
been sold though, hasn't it?
Pardon?
Have they sold Sandown or something?
Well, some talk of that, but I think until it's Fat Lady sings, it's not over.
Beautiful.
So I think we'll just keep enjoying it while we can.
Yep.
And but I think getting back to the 935s, the 2K3s sitting there on the floor, one of them, that car has been, was one of the last 935s that was came from the factory in 1982.
Yes.
And that was came as a pre-assembled car, and it was assembled at Porsche Cars Australia by Alan Hamilton and Jim Hardman. And from that time on, because there was a lack of racing in Australia, I then took that car to England.
Yes.
It went to Japan for the Le Mans Classics. It's been to Malaysia. And then we took to Laguna Seca from 2008 to 2011. We took both of them there, one as a spare, and we won 4 years in a row. And when we put in our application for the next year to go back, because it was a great carnival, one of the opponents who we raced against, he was on the selection committee, and he said, well, unfortunately the entries are full. So the best way to get rid of the opposition is knock them out of the ballot box. So after being there 4 years in a row and winning 4 years in a row, we thought we've got nothing else to prove.
And that was that car there?
That's in that car,
yep. And that was the livery you had it back then? No. What was the livery you had?
Same
on? Was
as
the same as that?
Same
She was? Yeah, beautiful.
Black and gold.
Black and gold, yeah. Like your helmet.
Like my helmet. I stole my helmet after his car.
Well, my black and gold goes way back to the Pantera days, back before I even owned a Porsche. And that was back in... purchased that car in 1975 and raced it in the GT, what they called production sports cars in those days. And I drove that car right up until 1982. So 82 was the first car that I really bought as a track car for Porsche, and that was a 935, which we still have the car. So my first Porsche on the track was, I went straight from the Di Tommaso Pantera straight into a 935, which was like going from a small hammer to a big hammer. So getting used to the boost and 800 horsepower, and that
totally
was,
different driving dynamic, isn't it?
Yeah, that had to get your mind right about that. But that was, we worked our way out of it.
They really are an unforgiving car, aren't they? If you're
they are, and I mean, even today, that car around Sandown, that'll do a 13, similar time to a Formula 5000, and at Phillip Island, it's a very, very quick car down there as well.
When was the last time you had her out on the track?
They haven't been on the track since they came back from America in 2011. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
So just prepared, just sitting in your collection.
Yeah, well, there's no racing for them as such with historic sports cars now. So
a lot of people don't want to race, and they're getting too valuable now.
Yeah. So, but they are great pieces. But I guess they're the engineering and the technology and the drivability of them. They're not an easy car to drive. You've got to wrestle them a bit. Yeah. Whereas the new cars are just so enjoyable. Like the GT2 RSs and the turbo. They're just it'd probably do a similar lap time to what this would.
Unreal.
Crazy.
Very
well,
good.
we need to move on to our next guest. So thank you very much for your time,
Captain.
Rusty.
Thank you so much.
Welcome. Okay.
Pleasure to have you on. Thank you so much for being here.
Nick. Okay.
Beautiful.
Done.
All right. Well,
thank you.
Sean,
Next one.
I'm going to boot you off as well.
Okay.
Go
cool.
chat to some clients.
We're going to get some new people on.
And we're going to bring in our next two guests, which is John and
Thank
Hugh.
you, guys.
So come have a seat, gentlemen. Grab yourselves a microphone. These two fine gentlemen are members of the Porsche Club Victoria, and they have been hand-picked by the boss himself to have a bit of a chat about some of the amazing cars that they own. So, gentlemen, please take your time, one at a time, introduce yourselves, and then we'll get onto the cars that you own.
Good morning. Okay, now where to start? Well, Hugh and I have both been members of the Porsche Club for a long time, and we've known each other for how long, Hugh?
I think I first got my first Porsche, I think it was 2004, and I pretty much joined the club at that point. And I remember meeting you very, very early on. John had Sorry, I'm going to steal your...
No,
John had a gorgeous little polo red 1965 911, which you just... Anyone who knows John knows his cars are just all perfect, and the way that you meticulously restored that car was just it's just an absolute credit. So that's sort of, I think with a lot of these, you end up sort of meeting people through their cars to some extent.
100%.
You know, like the car kind of draws you in, and then you sort of go, well, who owns this car? You know, and that was sort of my initial meeting with John. I mean, we've been long members of the club and sharing car stories ever since, really.
We have, very much so. So yes, that was my first Porsche, and it was quite a long restoration, a couple of years, and I didn't actually join the club until the car was restored. I thought I didn't want to come along and become a member without actually having the car ready to go.
Yeah.
So it took a couple of years to get to that point, and then joined the club and realised that my dream of owning a Porsche, and I thought it was all about the car, actually it turned very much to the people.
Yep.
And people like Hugh and everybody else that had cars, as Hugh alluded to, you see the car, you meet the people, and you become great friends, and it's just the most wonderful experience being part of this Porsche family.
We're all on the same drug, really. You know,
The turnout today, 300 people,
Yeah.
just insane.
It is.
It's all the same. We're all chasing the same sort of thing. We're all still
Exactly.
equally excited to see each other's cars, and I think that's what's so lovely about it. You know, even when you've got celebs and all sorts of other people that, you know, you see them at car meets, but it's like a total level. You know, Jerry Seinfeld could walk in here and you'd still be, you know, picking away at everyone's cars and still be equally interested in talking to everyone's cars about it. So it's a really, really lovely sort of, you know, kind of common sort of, I guess, passion that we all really share, which is great.
Yeah.
It is.
Awesome.
It is.
Awesome.
Yeah. So back to the cars. I've had 11 Porsches now. I've still got 7 of those 11. So just to run you through briefly, I'll go from oldest to newest. That's the way that I most remember it. Starting with a 1955 Pre-A 356. I've had that car for about 4.5 years. I haven't driven that yet because it's work in progress. So that's at the moment a bit of a restoration in progress. But I have a second 356, which is a 1963, and that one has been fully restored, and so I'm using that in a limited fashion because I tend to probably use the more modern cars a bit more than the really old ones these days.
But I tell you what, I drove a 356 the other day, and I was blown away how good that car was.
Oh, they are.
I mean, it might have not have helped that I'd stepped out of a Lotus Europa, so it kind of bottomed to the top there. But
I was just about to say, if you're driving other marques from the same era,
blown away.
You know,
No comparison.
My wife had an old MG,
Yeah.
you know, and I've got a 912 that I've come in today, similar era, but it seems like decades apart in terms of the actual driving experience.
Yeah, I would have said the way it felt. I would have said it was made in 1980, not 1960. Like it's just unreal. Anyway, continue. So we've got 2.
So that's 2 down. So with the 911s, the oldest one now is a 71, which is a 911S. So that's a 2.2 litre MFI motor. Lovely little car in Conda Green. Then the one that I've brought today, the 74 MFI Ducktail Carrera.
Awesome.
Again, beautiful car. That's got the 911 motor from the RS. So it's just an incredible drive, that car, and that's probably my favourite of the older cars to drive. So from that one, I then go to the 84 930 Turbo. Again, a fantastic car, but very different with the turbo lag, but beautiful, different looks to all of the other cars, and that's probably what I've tried to do with my collection, is have cars from different eras, different driving experiences. But the thing about the Porsche right across the whole range, the aesthetic on them, just the lines are just so beautiful. Whatever era car you're looking at, from very old right through to modern, they're just incredible. So after the 84, there's the 97 Boxster. Again, a lovely little car, great fun.
Just not a Boxster S, just
base,
a Boxster.
No, 97. So the base
Manual
model.
or
manual, of course.
awesome.
Yeah.
I was going to say Tiptronic. No.
Yeah, no,
Again,
couldn't-
time capsule.
Couldn't do that.
Yeah.
It's a total time capsule car. It's a full survivor, just
Wow.
Yeah, it's a great
Immaculate.
car. So much fun. So yeah, that's another good one. Let's see. After that, well,
John's got a
yeah. So that's 97. Then the 997 I had and sold that. That was an
Carrera
amazing
S,
car
didn't
too.
you?
Carrera S, yeah, 3.8 litre. That was unbelievable. So I regret probably having sold that car. I should have kept it.
I think the 997 is my favourite generation.
Yeah, look, it was a really good driving car. But I sold that after buying a 2016 GT3 RS, which again, another incredible car. I tend to like the colours with the cars too. So that one's the ultraviolet, which
Awesome.
obviously gets a lot of attention and very polarising colour. Most people love it, but there are definitely some haters out there.
It's a cool colour. It's a really cool colour.
Yeah, it is. It's great. So that I think rounds up my collection.
A bit of a hard act to follow.
It is a hard act to follow.
You know, Rusty with like 4 935s. And John with 11, and that's not what's obviously that's what John you currently have. We haven't even gone through the backstory of what's gone. But that's what you have.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, being all mates, you sort of have a bit of a the story of revolving cars is all sort of part of the. It's kind of, I don't know, it's what keeps us all kind of going, I guess, is the thrill of the chase. But I think, so I don't have 11 at the moment in the garage, but I've got, I came today in a 65 912, which is a little light ivory, 3-dial painted dash, very early sort of 912, which was a car that had been known to me for a very long time and went through a few owners before I finally managed to get it, but I've had the car ever since, and it's one of those cars there's a lot of me in that car.
Awesome.
I think it's very reflective of kind of, I don't know, what I like in cars. It's a very simple, basic, early car, but I absolutely adore it. I never actually really wanted I never aspired to have a 912, but I was drawn. I was talking to someone earlier today and saying that, I think the cars sort of find you more so, like I don't really go out looking for cars, but certain cars sort of find you and you sort of get drawn into them. And ended up having getting into this 912, and I just adore it, and love it. It's the best car. You drive it flat out everywhere. Drive flat out everywhere, and don't feel like you're even at risk of even the hint of getting in trouble. And it's so enjoyable. So it's out there. It's got bikes on the roof, and it's a very well used car. I've also got a 77 3 litre, which was the first 911 I purchased, which is when I joined the club, which has gone through several iterations, and I think as my ownership and I guess use of the cars has sort of grown, I think it lent itself to sort of me probably going and doing some more competition stuff with the club, and then that car has sort of been what has sort of evolved through my interests of competitive sort of, started off doing a bit of sprinting, and then I've gotten into some hill climbing, and now that car's sort of undergone another refresh, which is sort of more or less set it up as pretty much dedicated tarmac rally and hill climb car now. But I adore it. Again, I'll probably be buried in that car. I've done a lot of living in that car. So it's like I've had it for nearly 20 years, and drive it everywhere, compete in it, drive it home.
That's awesome.
It's just the best, and I think that's the thing with Porsches is, again, if you only have one car to do it all, they kind of do it.
They do it, 100%.
But the only other car I've got in the garage at the moment which I've recently acquired, which is a 69 911E, which is Alex Webster's old Group S historic race car. Because following on from what I just said, my journey with my experience now is sort of, I'm starting to kind of, the next frontier I think for me is to do some door-to-door racing. And that's sort of, I know a few of the guys that do Group S, and I guess it's all
there is no greater thrill.
Gentleman races, and I think that's sort of, it's a good sort of space to be in. So I think so I've purchased that car with the view of getting into some Group S with those guys and doing some door-to-door. So it's a little Irish green, 2 litre. So it's very modest, but it's got all the right touch points and sensory sort of things. But I'm definitely much more of an early 911 sort of
like
tragic.
It,
I have had a couple of 996 GT3s, and I adore them, and I'm a big 996 tragic as well. But at the moment, it's just early cars in the garage.
Okay.
Yeah.
The door-to-door racing is going to be excellent.
I'm excited, but I think doing hill climbing, I mean, even sprinting, you're still circulating with people, but it's not,
It's
you're
not the same.
It's not for track position, right?
No.
You're actually trying to give yourself some air, whereas door to door. But that's why I sort of hope that, when you're out there with those other guys, everyone's in their pride and joy. So I'm hoping that it's all pretty good. But I'll happily be in the 2-litre and probably be at the back and jostling with the midgets and I'm quite happy in that. Everyone else is sort of. Alex has now moved into a 2.7, which is obviously up the front with the Mustangs and things, but I'll just chill out the back. But no, it should be fun, man. I think that again, it's about having these cars, and they all sort of have their. I think that's a thing. Like even John's got 11, and people go, "Why would you have all these cars?" And then they all just do the same thing, but they're all.
They actually don't.
They're all
very different.
Very different. There's a certain day and a certain event, or there's a certain sort of reason to sort of be kind of going that car. I mean, you can use them all to a certain extent, but some, as you get to know the brand, I think there's some cars that just do certain things a little bit better than others.
Yep.
And that kind of sort of lets you to sort of draw you in, and then as you get kind of more of an anorak, you kind of then kind of getting more kind of fastidious about the specific kind of car and the year and the sort of gap that's going to fill. But yeah, as long as they're getting used, I'm sort of generally pretty happy.
For the racing, the one thing I can recommend is back when I was working at Lawbeck, we had looked like a really early RSR replica race car come in, and it had this rear view mirror that was the length of the windscreen.
Yep.
Cut into sections, and it was like I had a full 180 degree view behind me. Why every single car on the road doesn't have that, I don't know, because the vision was amazing. And when you're racing, it's one thing I don't have in my race car is rearward vision, and it's terrifying. Not knowing where they are, if they're diving down behind you, it's shocking. So rear vision.
The lovely thing with buying this car that had been well campaigned by Alex is that it's got all those got all those bits. It's got this massive mirror and internal lights for engine bays and working in service, which might be in the middle of a paddock and no light, and all these sort of all those sort of scenarios that Alex has already sort of been there and done that, and I think that's the benefit of being able to kind of get cars that have kind of already had a bit of a history with that sort of stuff. But no, I'm slowly learning, but that's all kind of part of the fun, really. And then there's obviously social days that we do social drives, and I still like going in the old 911, the social drives, but there'll be a new GT product probably come in my garage at some point, but I've got a bit more work to do before I can do that, though.
Don't we all? So, quickly, 3-minute story each. Either the best moment you've had in a car, the scariest moment you've had in a car, the most hilarious moment you've had in a car, off the top of your head.
I've got many.
You've got many? Brilliant.
I've got many of scaring co-drivers and yelling at me and abusing me. But probably one of the most memorable times I've had in my car is in my 77, and in 2019, which was sort of before the world ended, I drove it up to Bathurst and ran for the Australian Hill Climb Championships. So I ran it all weekend at the Australian Hill Climb Championships, and then I'm from Tamworth, New South Wales. I'm a country boy, so I then drove it to Tamworth, visited my dad, and then drove it home. And it just like to be able to do a trip like that. And then the next weekend we had the Australian Super Sprint Championships down at Phillip Island, so then I drove it down there. It's done some hard work, but again, to be able to do it in a car like that. And
what other car from 1977 would be reliable enough to do that?
Rolling in at scrutineering, and the front of it was just covered in bugs, so I drove it up obviously the night before. And there's all the Victorians looking at me going, "Did you just drive this?" And I'm like, "Well, of course. Why wouldn't you? It's just really memorable being able to do those sorts of events in a car like that and have it, just be such a sucker for punishment and be completely reliable. And I'm the weakest link in that scenario, and to have an old car that's so robust and so well catered for doing those sorts of events, I think is lovely. And it's kind of nice having that sort of time in the car as well, even if it is on the Hume. it's still enjoyable.
Still bonding time. 100%. What about you?
Well, for me, one of the things that I've really enjoyed is with ownership of the cars, when people actually contact me and say, "Look, I'm thinking about buying this car, or I really like that. Is there any chance you could give me a ride in it?" and I'm always happy to do that. But the one that stands out for me was a friend of mine from South Australia who I've done a few Tasmanian weekends with him, and he said, "Oh, my son's absolutely, enamoured by these 930s. We're coming across to Victoria. Is there any chance you could, take him for a drive?" And I said, "Yeah, of course." So when they came over, and initially I took his son for a drive, and he was just beaming, and taking photos and everything else. But we got to the destination. I said, "Let's have a coffee here." And my wife came with one of the other cars as well, and I handed him the keys, and I said, "Now, so that you can have the full experience, you drive the 930 home with your son." And so, obviously his eyes lit up as well. And I followed behind in I think it was the Boxster that day. But we got back to Geelong, and he'd driven it so cautiously and so, that I said, "Okay." I said to his son, "You hop out. I've got to show your dad how this car should be driven." Yeah. And so we went out for an extra 15 or 20 minutes, and that for me, just letting other people experience these cars, particularly when they're older cars that aren't all that accessible to a lot of people, but having young people as well just aspire to own them, to learn about them, and this kid knew all the stats about the car. He had the model in his bedroom, and then I got this wonderful letter a couple of weeks later thanking me for the opportunity. And there are just so many people in that sort of boat that if you can help give them that sort of experience, and it starts their Porsche journey.
100%.
It's the taproot.
Yeah,
that's the taproot.
I almost see that as a responsibility of us.
Totally.
To keep that flame going. 100%.
Yeah, sure.
Because it's a delicate flame at the moment,
Yeah,
the next generation of people that are gonna so whenever it's always nice when you sort of see a kid that's sort of interested in the car. She's like, "Oh mate, do you want to have a sit?" And then their parents are like, "Oh, you sure?" And you're like, "Of course!" Bring it on, because that's the thing. You really, again, you're hoping that there's another generation of kids that are going to get as excited as we do, even as adults, in relation to cars.
For sure.
Totally. All right. Well, on that fantastic note, thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you, Nick. It's been a pleasure.
You.
Awesome. We'll move on to our next guest. Cheers. Thank you very, very much. So, coming on now, we have Mark, who is the president of the Porsche Club Victoria. Very honoured to have him come on with us. He's going to tell us a little bit about the club and talk a bit about today. So, welcome, mate. I'll slide over on this
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
Oh, here we go. Getting all comfy. This spot's nice and warm. So, tell us a bit about, for those who don't know, a bit about Porsche Club Victoria.
Yeah, certainly. So we're one of the Porsche approved clubs by Porsche AG. The club's been going in 18 months. We'll be celebrating our 50th anniversary.
Amazing.
We're Victorian. We have more than 2,000 members.
2,000.
2,000. We run about 12 competition events a year. We run a total of about 60 events. So we're one of the most active car clubs in the country.
Of those competition events, are they sprints and regulation, or do you actually do door-to-door competition events as well?
So there's one regularity, probably 9 sprints. We do a hill climb and a motorcana.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah. So it's our members tend to run in state series if they want to go onto the racing.
Yep.
But all of ours are sprint events.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So mostly road cars then?
So we run different classes.
Okay.
And basically we have a cup car class. So we have members who've bought retired cup cars. And they bring them out. At Phillip Island we might have 12. We might have 6. We might have 4, just depending on the event. But so quite a few of our cars come in trailers or on trucks.
Okay.
But we cater for everything. So our classic class is all about road cars.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, 2,000 members, that's a lot of people.
It is. Yeah, a lot of really enthusiastic, passionate Porsche Club people.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, the boy you were sitting there listening to it, the guys before talked a lot about how the Porsche ownership experience is as much about the people in the community as it is about the car. And I just love that. Have you found that to be the same?
Yeah, absolutely. And so we have a very active social side. And, some of our people who will drive their cars out into the country for a lunch will never come onto a track.
Yeah,
But that's it. The club caters for all types of enthusiasm. In different ways, and it's very much about people getting together, as they've done here this morning at Young Timers Garage. Getting together, looking at cars, talking about their experience. It's very much based around enthusiasm for the brand.
Yeah, no, fantastic. Well, I think this morning's been great. The turnout was pretty phenomenal. We've absolutely filled the car park. I'll put some drone shots up later. It just looks unreal from the sky.
It's absolutely fabulous. And this is quite a different event for us to do we generally do a club night. 4 times a year, to come here and do a morning. Big thanks to Young Timers Garage and Sean and crew for hosting us and really opening up, your home almost. Very, very generous. And I think our members have really appreciated the morning.
Awesome. No, well, we've loved having you here. It's been absolutely fantastic. Is there anything else we want to kind of cover off?
No, just anyone out there who has a Porsche, I guess, consider joining the club.
Beautiful.
If you're an enthusiast, you found your people.
Hunt, you said it best. Yep, couldn't have said it better. Now, I did hear before that they mentioned that there was potentially an event or something that you wanted to plug.
So we're at Phillip Island Down on the 10th of September.
10th of September.
And I think Rusty mentioned that his daughter Jessie's coming down to our entree class, which is a come and try, a learner class. And that's really a good way to get people out on track for the first time.
Fantastic. Great. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for having us.
It's pleasure having the club here. And I think that pretty much wraps it up.
Perfect.
We'll see you all in another episode. Thank you very much for listening.